And welcome to Slow News Day Live. My name is Steve Poikinen. I'm here in beautiful Boulder Creek, California, and holy shit, do we have a show for you today. Uh, I am joined this morning by two gentlemen who have decided in good faith and intellectual exercise to engage in a debate on the merits of both the progressivism and the odds and opportunities provided by the candidates Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard. Representing but not speaking on behalf of Bernie Sanders, I have Obi, who goes by Yellow Vest America on Twitter. You guys have been following him and watched the build up for this. Obi, thank you very much for being on today. Say hey to the folks. I don't know what happened just there. What the shit? That was weird. That was weird.
Oh, you good?
We're good. Man, they're fucking with us already.
Well, CIA be watching me, so.
And best foot forward, and then representing Tulsi Gabbard, we've got Niko House from the Mikasa Sukasa Network. Niko, good morning.
Good morning, man. I appreciate you hosting this debate and taking time out of your busy day. Hopefully, your wife is a little bit more understanding. I know we took a lot of her time yesterday.
So. Oh, we can all hope for that, and then we can shit in the other hand and see which one fills up faster. Let's cover some ground rules real quick. I'm going to have a timer running. You're going to have any 3 to 5 minutes max to respond to a question. I'm going to allow 2 rebuttals per issue. Then anything else I'm going to consider tangential, note down, and we will circle back to that in the second half of the debate. Please do your damnedest to refrain from making this personal or personally attacking the character of each other. I have a dad voice and I don't want to fucking use it. And outside of that, let's let the merits of what we're discussing speak for themselves. Does that sound good, y'all?
Sounds good.
Sounds great to me, man.
Okay, let's jump right into this, and we've got varying interpretations of and varying opinions
And
on.
outside of that,
What the fuck was that? The Medicare for All bills, Medicare for All plans, as proposed by Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard. Obi, I would like to start with you. What shines in your mind and what makes Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All the cornerstone benchmark of the most progressive healthcare plan?
sure. So the U.S. is the only developed country in the world without universal health care. We have a unique problem of having people that are uninsured and people that are bankrupt for medical bills. We have about 30 to 45,000 people dying each year without without any health insurance at all. So we obviously need a health insurance bill that will provide everybody with quality care. Bernie's bill, Medicare for All, is going to be the best way to do that, as it is a single payer bill that is a just one provider from the government. It's Medicare. It would cover mental, primary care, dental, and it's a really comprehensive bill, and it's free at the point of service. So other candidates, they've been kind of latching on to Medicare for All, saying they support Medicare for All. But the trick with them, with Kamala, Yang, Tulsi, is that they allow duplicative coverage. So that's when a business, private insurance, can cover what Medicare already covers. And that makes it inherently not Medicare for All, as that makes it more than one payer. So a single payer is the only real, true universal healthcare system. And that is the way that we should go forward.
Niko, I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond to that.
As in respond to just what he said, or give my overall?
Make your case for Tulsi Gabbard, and if there's a rebuttal on either part, then go ahead and move to that.
Okay. So Tulsi's plan isn't called Medicare for All. She's actually said because Medicare for All means so many things and so many different people, it's been warped. Not only over the last, really since 2008, when Dennis Kucinich introduced it, but then even after John Conyers reintroduced it recently, it's been warped since. It's been warped within the last year. So Tulsi decided, for various reasons, to introduce her own healthcare legislation. That legislation will be called Single Payer Plus. It is a single payer It's actually, according to every other model of single payer across the country, it is actually the only single payer legislation by definition that is, or single payer plan, I should say, by definition, that is available right now. Now, Bernie's plan, although it is great, it is a really, really, really good plan, and I would still be, for the most part, happy if we got that pushed through for the country. However, Tulsi's Single Payer Plus plan achieved a lot of what Bernie's does. However, she doesn't rely on Medicaid like Bernie's does. Bernie's keeps Medicaid in place. She doesn't rely on the Social Security Act, which Medicare and Medicaid are derived from, which Obamacare uses right now in order to facilitate how a lot of these services will take place. She's revamping the system. In her plan, she also addresses something that Bernie's plan does not address, which is long-term health care. Bernie's plan makes Medicaid pay for it. Now, Jayapal's plan, however, is different. It is single payer and it takes care of long-term health care permanently. However, Bernie's plan does not do that. Why he didn't just sign on the Jayapal's plan or reintroduce that in the House, well, we can debate that later on in this discussion. However, the fact of the matter is, Bernie's plan, for whatever reason, does not have permanent long-term health care coverage. However, Tulsi has informed me that her plan will. On top of that, it actually addresses the doctor shortage that nobody wants to talk about for whatever reason. Doctors are already stressed. A large amount of them are actually, they contemplate suicide because of how much stress they are under. And nobody has seemed to address it, but Tulsi does this in a few different ways, while simultaneously addressing our immigration problem and the expensive cost for colleges. She plans on incentivizing foreigners who want to go to medical school, want to pursue MD, to get fast-tracked citizenship by coming to our school, going to a public institution to get their MD, and then after serving, and we pay for it, and after serving a certain amount of years, 6 or 7 years in the States as a doctor, you now have no tuition that you're paying back, and then you get your permanent citizenship off of the work, or transitioning from that worker's visa. I mean, there's a long list of reasons why Tulsi single payer is the best plan. But the main contention against Tulsi's plan, of course, has been from some people that because she allows duplicative coverage, that it is not single payer. Well, that's just a lie. And then on top of that, people have also called it public option. And that, once again, is a flat out lie. There is no buying into Tulsi's plan. Every single person will be paying into Tulsi's single payer plus plan, everybody. However, if you're part of a union and you have a plan that works better for you because your union is paying for it, so maybe you get expedited surgeries, because if maybe you're in a union for construction, you don't want to be put in the same pool as everybody else when it comes to waiting time. Not saying that waiting time under Medicare for all will be 5 months for a surgery, but I was in the military when we had the best healthcare in the world, and my surgery for a simple shoulder was 3 months. Like, the wait time for it was 3 months with one of the best health insurances in the world. So if I'm a construction worker, or if I'm a construction company and I want to pay for insurance to make sure that my guys and my women are ready to go whenever I need them, then they want to maintain that choice. Or if you're in my situation, like a lot of veterans, I'm retired. I'm a disabled retired veteran, and I get TRICARE. Under Bernie's plan, I cannot keep my TRICARE. And for me, might not be that big of a deal. However, we know that veteran suicide is incredibly high. Mental health issues and PTSD, along with other issues, plague veterans right now with the best health care that there is to offer in the United States. Imagine putting them in the same pool as everybody else.
You had about 10 seconds.
So overall, so like I said, Tulsi doesn't need Medicaid to supplement. It doesn't need Medigap to supplement anything. Her healthcare will be great as a single payer plan. However, if you want to be one of those few that want to get a private insurance plan, like in Australia, which is the best healthcare system in the world, that also allows duplicative coverage, you can do that, no problem, and it will not affect the risk pool.
Obi.
All right, I'd like to rebut that. So, first of all, Bernie did not sign on to Jayapal's bill because Jayapal is in the House and Bernie's in the Senate. So, it's going to be a different bill under the Senate. And in theory, you would merge the two together before you actually pass it on. Second of all, the whole deal about her duplicative coverage, yes, in other countries, it's used to expedite surgery, but it's used to expedite elective surgery. And you transition the burden from need to cost. So people that can afford private insurance, other than the single payer, than the government provided insurance, they would have a leg up over everybody else. So would have higher quality care because they can skip the line because they have more money. Whereas a single payer system, everybody is in the same risk pool, and including the rich, including the poor. So it's incentivized for everybody to get equal quality care. Also, the thing about Bernie's bill that's improved from Tulsi's is that since Bernie is a single payer bill, unlike Tulsi's bill, you do not have the administrative hassle and costs that doctors have currently, having to bill for multiple different providers. You would just have Medicare being covered. So that's why most of the nurses and doctors are behind Bernie's Medicare for All and not Tulsi Single Payer Plus. And I'd like to add, I don't understand if healthcare is the most important issue that's primary. I want to understand why Tulsi hasn't come out with their plan yet. That should be a big priority.
Let me interject here real quick and throw this question to Niko because it directly relates to Tulsi Gabbard's bill. If unions are buying private insurance, does that not take away the union's workers' ability to leverage single payer healthcare and the healthcare that they're getting free from the government as a way to increase their wages?
No, actually it does not. It does the opposite. And this is what I was just about to talk about. Well, for one, I'm gonna address that first. So if I'm paying into the risk pool, if I'm paying into the single payer legislation, no matter what, it doesn't matter if the union wants to buy me private health insurance. But guess what? All of a sudden, well, this union is now incentivized to buy me private health insurance, and likely it'll be provided for the people for free. And maybe it'll come out of the union dues, whatever. But you can't charge me out the ass for this private health insurance now, like you can in our current system, because, well, where are you going to go get better insurance, right? Especially depending on what state that you're living in. Because if you don't want to give me the insurance I need under Tulsi Single Payer Plus plan, okay, fine, I'll just go with the single payer. It's fine. But now, if I'm a union member, all of a sudden I have more leverage. Guess why? Because I have my single payer. You can't threaten me or use a healthcare as a bargaining chip to say it's either your healthcare or your wages. Now it's, I'm going to get my wages and my healthcare, and if you don't want to give me the wages or the healthcare or additional healthcare, I'm just going to go somebody else who will. And there's always somebody else who will. So, and I also want to address the part where you said the Jayapal is in the House. That's cool, but I don't know if you understand there's a thing called a joint resolution, like a joint resolution that was introduced for the resolution or the bill to end the war in Yemen. That was a joint resolution. What happens when you have a joint resolution is that somebody in the House, somebody in the Senate. Oh, the Bezos Act, another example. Joint resolution, exact same bill. One's just in the House, one's in the Senate. They try and get them passed at the same time. They then address, if it doesn't pass in the Senate, they go to committee, readdress and tweak, and then they reintroduce it again in the Senate, but not the House, get it voted through, get it signed, going about the business. So when Bernie has a better plan, if it's a better plan with Jayapal, right? She has a better plan. I think everybody agrees with that. And it was introduced before his. Why didn't you just introduce a joint resolution? Why were you working with the likes of Kirsten Gillibrand, who was bragging about it at the debates, that she worked on Bernie's healthcare legislation, instead of just introducing Jayapal's legislation because it's the closest to Conyers, right? Everybody, I know this because it is literally Conyers' bill, a few tweaks, and it was just reintroduced because she said it. Conyers bill was the gold standard for Medicare for all. Why not just reintroduce that? And I know that he knows this because guess what? He introduced it in 2017 the first time. So he knows that there was a better version. He worked with people who have corporate interests backing them, and that is why it is a worse version. So we're having this conversation about between Tulsi's and Bernie's, but I don't have to wonder whether or not Tulsi's bill is going to be watered down once she introduces, or once the plan or her plan, excuse me, is going to be watered down once she introduces it. At the end of the day, Tulsi, during this election, after she talked to the people, decided, okay, you know what, this private, because she's been to the Midwest a lot, she's been to New Hampshire a lot, she's talked to a lot of union members, and she herself is a member of the military. So she's been talking to people who are very, very worried that they're going to lose their private coverage because they're one of the few. There's only a few million that have great coverage. Cool. But those few million, like myself, really, really like their coverage. I just went to the doctor the other day, got my medication, saw my psychiatrist. Guess what? It cost me $0. Don't want it to change. I don't want to have to wait longer for it. I don't want to have to wait longer for my surgeries. And that's fine. But guess what? Guess what I also have to be okay with? I still have to pay into Tulsi's system. But under Bernie's, I have to pay into it, and I still lose my great coverage right now. Now, as far as it being the only single-payer plan, that's not true. I just told you, Medicaid is part of Bernie's plan. It's not part of Jai Pal's. Medicare, Medicaid, Medigap, and which Obi continues to leave out, and I find it ironic that he continues to do so. If I have a problem with the way Medicare for all is being ran as a provider, in that fine print at the end of the bill, it says that I can opt out of the network and I can go with private contractors. Now, don't you think that if I'm a doctor, right now Medicare pays about 1/3 of what private insurance companies pay individual providers? Now, maybe for a hospital, that's not as big of a deal. But if I'm a small little psychiatrist with 2 workers, and by the way, the bureaucracy right now is what's causing people to not take Medicare in its current form, when not anywhere near as many people are using it. So imagine when you triple that with no mechanism to address the doctor shortages like I just talked about. But on top of that, you're going to have even more doctor shortages for your network, because they're going to opt out when a private insurance company pays them 5 times with less bureaucracy and less paperwork than what Medicare for all can pay them. Under Tulsi's plan, there is no option to opt out of her single payer plan. You can take additional private coverage. You might even be able, there might be incentives to give special privileges for special situations.
30
However,
seconds.
There's no opting out. So if you can't opt out of Tulsi's plan, because you keep talking about the people who use the healthcare, there's no talk at all about the providers who have to give that coverage. I know we like to think that the world is all rainbows and gumdrops, and you can just go as much as you want to, and everything's going to be fine. All the doctors are going to do it. That's not how it works. There is no mechanism in Bernie's bill to take care of the root of our causes, which is the ability to negotiate our own prices, negotiate with pharmaceuticals, negotiate with pharmaceutical companies, our own prices, take care of the lobbying interests, which Tulsi signed on to that bill, the move to amend bill. Bernie did not. And it's once again, so that's the second time this has happened regarding this type of legislation. So she's taking care of not only the root, but the problems that are current in our system, and she's introducing solutions to problems that aren't even being discussed in the Medicare for all dialogue.
That's time. I'm going to give Obi a chance to respond to this, and then everything else on this topic we're going to hold until the second half of the debate. Right. We're going to move to the next subject.
First of all, the statement that unions can use the private healthcare as a bargaining, like they can't use it as a bargaining chip under Tulsi's plan. Yeah, they can, because they would be offering private insurance. Bernie's, they would not. They would have to transfer to offering those workers wages. So that would not be a bargaining chip. Second of all, I don't know why we're going over the semantic arguments of, oh, should you release a joint resolution or not a joint resolution? The fact is, Jayapal released a House bill for Medicare for all, and Bernie released a Senate bill for Medicare for all. And he would go back and they would put it together. And that's how it usually works. Third of all, the whole people want to keep their private insurance. I want to keep my insurance. That's a centrist Buttigieg argument. This false notion of choice. With Medicare for all, you'd have more choice than if you had some private insurance option. Medicare for all, you have no restrictions, no limitations to which providers you can go to. With Medicare for all, under Bernie's bill, it's a single payer, just Medicare system. So.
Okay, well, I've got a couple of things jotted down to come back to, and we're definitely going to revisit how union participation will affect this. And we're also gonna nail down whether or not that's a false choice in regard to who gets to participate and how.
If that's possible, I'd like to go back to the private contracts as well.
Oh, certainly. Let me jot that down. And the opt out. All right. And let me go back over to my notes here. Let's move to climate change, because this is something that I have very, I guess, out of mainstream opinions about. So I'd like to discuss the merits of Bernie's Green New Deal and Tulsi's Off Act, and kind of compare and contrast those. I would like to keep it as realistic as possible, because Bernie's Green New Deal is an awful lot like the one that AOC put forth. There's some tweaks to it, but it's rooted in the same framing, and the same people that would benefit through new green capitalism under AOC's bill will also benefit in the long run with both the Off Act and Bernie's Green New Deal. Obi, I'm going to let you kick off, and sure. I'm going to let you kind of set up the overall discussion on the Green New Deal versus the Off Act. And let me restart the timer. And 3 to 5 minutes, sir, go.
All right, so Tulsi, she did a good job introducing the Off Act. It does a lot of really good things, like transitioning off of fossil fuels. It has indigenous people in mind. It has not allowing nuclear energy in mind. She's against that, so that's pretty good. Bernie's bill is actually more comprehensive, and it Tulsi's moves us from fossil fuel to clean energy by 2035. Bernie's by 2030. Tulsi's does not address the effects of climate change that are going to happen regardless of what we do. Bernie's does. It addresses funding FEMA. It addresses the effects of climate change, the effects of sea level rise, and it also affects urban sprawl and mass transit and high-speed rail. Tulsi's does not. Bernie's also has the workers more in mind other than Tulsi's. So Tulsi's bill, for up to 3 years, workers can get unemployment insurance, healthcare, and pensions based on their salary, up to 4 years of job training, healthcare, and living expenses. On Bernie's bill, it has a more worker-focused method. So you get up to 5 years of a wage guarantee. You get job placement assistance. You get relocation assistance. You get healthcare, Medicare for all. You get the pension based on a previous salary as well. And if workers want to train for a different path, they get either a 4-year free education or vocational job training, and living expenses are provided as well. So Bernie understands the big issue about the transition from our current economy to the green economy. So a big thing about the Green New Deal that Bernie has is that it emphasizes that we need to build the safety net before we even get started. So Bernie has that in mind, to build the safety net, to make sure Medicare for all is in place, to make sure free tuition is in place, to have a safety net for workers to transition from coal and from oil to fossil fuels. Bernie also emphasizes going after and criminalizing the CEOs of the oil companies that have been causing this disaster, so that we can have a punishment for people that are polluting the environment. Tulsi's is not.
All right, Niko. Let's hear about the off act, and then I'll give you guys a chance to respond to each other.
Okay. So let me just say first and foremost that the number one cause of climate change in the world is the United States military. Number one contributor. Just based off of Tulsi's anti-imperialist, anti-regime change war reigning in the military-industrial complex, just based off of that alone, without even going into the off act, she's already the best on climate change. Unlike Tulsi, as much as I love Bernie, Bernie has profited off of the military-industrial complex. Everybody knows that the F-35 or F-40, whatever, the jet that is made in Vermont, that is obviously a military jet plane. That's one of the reasons why Bernie has been so complicit in the military-industrial complex. And he is voted, even though oftentimes votes against the military budgets, the NDAA specifically, he oftentimes does vote for the actions that budget pays for, which contributes to climate change. Now, once again, Tulsi wasn't perfect on that, but at this point, she's vastly better and vastly differentiated herself from the rest of the field in that regard. Now, transitioning into the off act, I would have to completely and totally disagree with Obi when he says, "Oh, it doesn't focus." She doesn't. Well, one, he laid out a bunch of things that actually do focus on workers, which is kind of weird. Don't know why he did that. But let me just say, this is just one piece of what she says regarding workers. Without equivocation, this is in the bill, not the plan, by the way. Without equivocation, we must not only create new jobs for workers who have lost work, but we must ensure that those new jobs are good jobs, meaning they pay a family-sustaining wage, not just a living wage, but a family-sustaining wage. They provide health care and retirement benefits. They are safe, and the workers who hold them have a powerful voice on the job through union organizing and the collective bargaining process, especially those in the auto and fossil fuel industries, transitioning them out into the renewable energy industry. Moreover, we must create these jobs in the same communities that are suffering. While workers are transitioning to new employment, they must receive protections to maintain family-level wages, health care, and pensions until they are able to start their new jobs. Further, workers need support in connecting with new jobs, the opportunity to learn new skills through vocational education programs. In addition, the communities must have the infrastructure to attract new investment that provides those jobs. So basically everything that Obi just said is included in Bernie's plan is already included in Tulsi's bill, not a plan, but a bill. And it didn't take AOC introducing some Green New Deal resolution that could have been written by a 12-year-old for Tulsi to introduce this legislation. At the end of the day, this is about the presidency, who's going to lead from the front. And I think that everybody here agrees in one form or another, whether or not you agree on how it happens. We all know that climate change is real, and we all know that we can't wait to begin to prepare for it. So when Tulsi introduced this legislation in 2017, where was Bernie's heir apparent legislation in the Senate? Why wasn't Bernie traveling the country with Tulsi pushing the OFF Act like he was traveling the country pushing the Green New Deal resolution? And if Bernie's bill is, or Bernie's plan, excuse me, if that is anywhere near as good as Tulsi Gabbard's OFF Act, why is it only Tulsi Gabbard's legislation has been introduced or endorsed by 400 climate and environmental organizations? Not just climate, because that's what people keep forgetting. Yeah, climate is good, but the environment, we can't prepare for the climate by sacrificing our environment, which the Green New Deal allows for. And even Bernie co-sponsored legislation. He co-sponsored legislation to for fuel cells, to fill fuel cells for electric cars, which requires fracking, which hurts the environment. And it was created by, the legislation was created by a former fracking lobbyist and was co-sponsored by Kirsten Gillibrand and Kamala Harris. I think that we can all agree that even before you take any peek at a piece of legislation, looking at who supports it, looking at who talks about it, and looking at how normalized the plan has been in the mainstream,
30 seconds.
It lets you know exactly what it could possibly achieve and whose interest it works for. And I'm glad that Steve mentioned who benefits, because for the Green New Deal, the Green New Deal is basically being set up to have the labor created and facilitated through AmeriCorps, which works with the Clinton Foundation. So now we're setting up our climate change industry to be monopolized by the exact same people we're fighting against. I don't have to worry about that with Tulsi's bill, which is why 400 people or 400 organizations endorsed it, but people are being silent on it. They're silent on it because it'll work. That's why.
And
All right, I'd like to rebut. So there's a lot of falsehoods in that. First of all, I don't know why you're tying in Gillibrand Hillary with Bernie's Green New Deal. He had experts from environment, experts from indigenous groups, experts from immigration groups working on this plan. Also, Tulsi's Off Act was
how many endorsed it?
Tulsi's Off Act was introduced, but it's also expired, and she hasn't reintroduced it as well. She also hasn't come out with a presidential plan for it. The Green New Deal is also more comprehensive. As I said, it addresses mass transit, high-speed rail, FEMA, flooding as well, and it addresses agriculture as well. So it calls to break up agricultural business and go back to smaller, more independent farms, which we need to do. As he said, we need to take care of the environment as well, not just the climate. It also is better for workers, as I said earlier, as yes, Tulsi has a lot of those ideas that Bernie has, but Bernie has a 5-year wage guarantee. Tulsi does not. Also, Bernie's Green New Deal would be tied with his federal jobs guarantee, and Tulsi does not support a federal jobs guarantee. Even on the debate stage, she went against Bernie's federal jobs guarantee in favor of supporting Andrew Yang's UBI, even though she hasn't signed anything saying that she would actually follow through.
Let me interject here in a minute, because we're going to do a whole round on federal jobs guarantee versus UBI. Let's try and keep that out of this particular discussion so that we can flesh it out in detail here coming up.
And also the notion of you need to be anti-imperialist and anti-war to combat climate change. I actually agree. That's why Bernie's the more anti-imperialist and anti-war candidate than Tulsi. Bernie did not, well, Tulsi, she actually took money from the military-industrial complex. She took $10,000 from Boeing. She took $63,000 from the defense sector in 2016. She only stopped taking PAC money in 2017.
This is still about the Green New Deal versus the Off Act, though, so if we could keep it to that, we've got a whole second half where we can light up on tangents.
All right, that's it.
Niko, do you have a rebuttal in terms of the Green New Deal or anything that was mentioned about that?
Yeah, this whole idea that it expired. Well, technically, yeah, the session expired, but the only thing she has to change is the dates. But once again, it does not go without saying that, yeah, it's expired. But guess how many people talked about it before we started talking about it here, other than like maybe myself and a few others? Nobody, including Bernie. So once again, we have to ask, are you introducing this Green New Deal because it's a great marketing opportunity and it makes you look like you're the most, people will look at the name Green New Deal and then pay attention to that and then read what you have to say? Or are you doing it because you think that it'll get passed? You think it's actually the best foot forward? You think it's the best way? And I don't think that's the case. I think that the Off Act, which Tulsi introduced first, which as actually endorsed by 400. I'm not talking about, he consulted experts. I believe that Bernie does consult experts for legislation. Don't get me wrong. Bernie does great work, but Tulsi does better work. And it's been proven time and time again. There's not one piece of legislation that where Tulsi introduced a solution and Bernie introduced a solution and Tulsi's wasn't better. And this is within the last 4 years. And the Off Act is no exception to this rule. Yeah, you can consult people, and that's great. Tulsi consulted, and they're like, your final product is the best product we have ever seen in the history of this country. And so not only is it a question of the Green New Deal versus the Off Act, but the conviction to see the policy through. And who's introducing it because it's a good presidential pitch, or who introduced it because they actually cared about fighting for the environment. And then as far as that taking money from Boeing, she did take it in her congressional campaign, not the last one, but the one, not the last one, but the one before. That's true. But once again, so did Bernie. Bernie's taking a military industrial complex money, and he's the reason that military jets are built in Vermont. He's the reason for it. So, I mean, Tulsi didn't create the damn bases in Hawaii. She works there, but she didn't create them. Bernie is the reason that the military jets exist in Vermont and are being built there.
Again, man, we've got a whole second half where we can debate the merits of that. Let's move on then.
Can I rebut that one more time?
Oh yeah, absolutely. This would be the second.
Yeah. So first of all, the Green New Deal has had history going back decades. The OFF Act is just something introduced by a congresswoman compared to the Green New Deal, which has a longer history. Also, only Bernie has the ability to even get the Green New Deal passed. Tulsi does not have any kind of movement behind her to get the Green New Deal passed. Bernie has Our Revolution. He has DSA that endorses him and Democratic Socialist candidates. Bernie can pull crowds of 30,000, 20,000, 10,000. Tulsi can't pull anything over 5,000, 7,000.
So my question would be, why wouldn't he use
Bernie's
that to pass the OFF Act if we can't wait?
Organize. Bernie's the only person that's confirmed on Secular Talk that he would go to Democrats states and primary other Democrats, and he would be organizer in chief and actually get people in the streets to put public pressure.
Okay, so why didn't he do that in 2017?
Bernie's the only person that has a movement to even get the Green New Deal passed.
So why didn't he do that in 2017? Why didn't he do it in 2017?
Real quick, let me interject here. The Green New Deal has existed for a long time. It has. But Howie Hawkins co-wrote it.
Exactly.
And it was something that existed only in the confines of the Green Party until 2019. So
and then Jill Stein said, let's reintroduce a real Green New Deal, not this nonsense that's being pushed.
And in my opinion, if you look at Howie Hawkins' Green New Deal from 2010, 2011 and compare it with Jeff Markley and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal, there is it's a night and day difference. So the framing there was a little bit disingenuous. Let's go ahead and talk about why.
I do want to say though. I want to say real quick. Just sorry to interrupt, Steve, but the Green New Deal, Bernie's Green New Deal, is good. Don't get me wrong, people. It's really, really good. But it's a plan, one, and then two. I'm glad that he can form this movement. But I thought we all just agreed that climate change can't wait, and yet here we are waiting when Bernie had a plan introduced by his friend, by his colleague, by someone who was also endorsed by Our Revolution in her congressional campaign. And yeah, he has a movement. That's fantastic. What's the point of having a movement when you had an opportunity to do the right thing? The best climate legislation in history was introduced.
Donald Trump.
You didn't do anything with it. What does that have to do with anything? You could have. Donald Trump's president right now. He's still campaigning with AOC for the Green New Deal.
He's running for president.
But Donald Trump, he still walked around campaigning with AOC for the Green New Deal, and Donald Trump's still president. He's running for president in 2017 too. He's not naive. He knew what time it was. I'm just curious. Like if that's what it's about, because I don't have to ask if Tulsi stands with Bernie on most issues because she either co-sponsored or introduced joint resolutions to match him. She co-sponsored Jai Powell's Medicare for All. She introduced climate change legislation.
If you want him to answer, you should let him answer, though.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Which one do you want me to answer?
What is taking him so long to talk about something and campaign on something, or what took him, I should say, so long to talk about something and campaign on something that I thought we all agreed couldn't wait?
Because he champions the Green New Deal, and now he's running.
Green New Deal hadn't been thought about yet. It hadn't been thought about. So it hadn't been thought about. It hadn't even been talked about. Outside of
the Green New Deal has always been talked about. It was not always. Yes, it was introduced in the Green Party, but it's always been talked about. Then AOC reintroduced it as a House resolution, and now Bernie has his presidential plan. And it's more comprehensive than the OFF Act, and it offers a wage guarantee, which the OFF Act does not. It addresses FEMA, addresses flooding, it addresses agriculture.
OFF Act does offer.
Also,
I just read it to you out of the bill. I just literally read it out of the bill.
Does what?
It literally, I just read it to you out the bill. Not only does it say just a wage guarantee, but it's very specific that your wage needs to be able to sustain an entire family. I was very clear about that.
No,
that's out of the bill.
That's her saying that.
That's not her saying. It's in the bill. It's in the bill.
I'm gonna pull up the bill.
5-year wage guarantees under Bernie's. That's not under Tulsi's.
I'm gonna pull it up. And while I do that, and I'll make that part of the second half. Let me jot that down.
I sent you the link. I just sent you a link, Steve.
All right. So let's talk for a minute about the federal jobs guarantee and universal basic income. If I were to give my own opinion, I would say that both are independently decent ideas that only work if they're implemented together. And what I've seen is not a lot of cohesiveness in that. It's either one or the other. If you had to make a case for standalone UBI or standalone federal jobs guarantee, as supported respectively by Tulsi Gabbard and Bernie Sanders, let's run through that, and let's run through Tulsi's, I guess, tacit advocacy of universal basic income. I'm going to reset the stopwatch, and Niko, you can start this one and go.
Yeah. So just as a caveat, I agree with you, Steve. I think that it's silly for us to have the debate on which one's better when we really need both of them if we're being real about it. However, Tulsi does support UBI, although she doesn't necessarily support it through the VAT tax, but she does support a version of UBI. And I believe that the discussion of UBI has been a little bit disingenuous. The argument that people made the night that Tulsi said that she supported UBI again, because it wasn't the first time, was that, oh, how dare she? I can't believe this. She's not supporting the federal jobs guarantee. How dare she? And it was basically an attack because it's Yang's policy, and that's what he's running on, and she's not supporting Bernie's policy. But what people don't know is that Tulsi has made it clear for not just a couple of months, but for actually years, that she doesn't support specifically a federal jobs guarantee. And the reason she does support UBI is because if I'm disabled, how am I going to get a guaranteed federal job? If I'm a single mother and my job is to look out for my kids, because my husband, maybe he works long distances and my kids are active in sports. I want to make sure they're active in clubs and organizations for their school. Her job is to be the nurturer. Is that job not worth as much because she can't work for the federal government? I don't think so. I think it's worth her job, and her contribution to society are just as important as somebody building a road, because that kid will eventually be introduced into the society. And the tests are out there. The studies have been done. When a family is able, or when kids are able to be nurtured by a complete and total home, when the parents are not overstressed and overworked and worried about money, they tend to perform better in society. So for you, not that I'm against federal jobs guarantee, but I understand from Tulsi's perspective and from Yang's perspective, if I had to have an either or, I would take the UBI, because like I said, whether you want to argue about the $1,000 a month or however much it should be, that's a different discussion. But at the end of the day, if I know my rent is paid, my car note is taken care of, and my insurance is paid, then the world is your oyster. I can focus more on, I'm not a slave to a job. I can go look for the job I want, rather than just getting handed a job through a federal jobs guarantee that I might not even be good at, or I might not even like. And that's just a few of the reasons why I feel like UBI. Obviously, automation is a big thing too, but I do believe that, like, for construction, and if we're talking about repairing roads and fixing our infrastructure, automation won't be as big of a deal for the first few years, but automation is coming, and everybody has acknowledged this. With UBI, it drastically reduces the effects of not only automation, but it provides immediate mitigating circumstances for those affected by NAFTA and other disastrous trade deals. And like I said, it just solves more problems immediately without making you a slave to a specific job.
All right, so I like to say that, I support I'm open to the idea of UBI, but I support federal jobs guarantee more. I definitely think that it would work to have them both together. Um, I mean, I don't have anything point of contention with it, honestly. But I think a federal jobs guarantee would just be a better idea, especially with the Green New Deal, as you're guaranteeing like jobs for infrastructure and everything to everybody with $15 minimum wage, which would
Let,
pay even more than the UBI.
let me ask this. Let me pose a question to both of you that's related to what we're talking about, because I think it hinges on whether or not a federal jobs guarantee would be the equivalent of indentured servitude, essentially, or whether or not there would be some freedom with it. Who's whispering in Bernie's ear? Do either of you know?
As far as what?
Guiding him on his concepts of the federal jobs guarantee.
Labor unions generally, but this is something that he's been like a federal jobs guarantee is something that he's been advocating for quite some time.
Yeah, it's been like 30 or 40 years, but there's an actual federal jobs guarantee sort of institute that's been formed over the last 18 or so months. Johnny Axum from Minnesota is the founder of it. And the core concept there is a sort of an amended definition of work, in terms of home care is work. Like taking the elder care is work. Like if you have a disabled or sick or older relative at home and taking care of them is what you do, you are, that's part of your federal jobs guarantee. I don't hear that coming out of Bernie Sanders. Is it?
I mean, I haven't heard him use that rebuttal either. That the federal, because that's what it always is said about UBI, but he doesn't rebut with, "Oh, well, in my federal jobs guarantee, that will be considered work." So I don't know. I can't tell you.
Andrew Yang's UBI is basically a Cato Institute fantasy, as far as I'm concerned, because the way that it affects the people who are currently just now making too much money to not get state assistance or federal assistance are going to be impacted the most by it, because it's, I could use $1,000 a month, but if I do, I'm sorry, the people who are just at that cusp at receiving state and federal aid, they get impacted the most, because if their income goes up, then they lose all of their benefits, and their benefits are worth more than $1,000 a month.
Yeah, if for states, yeah, it's a big deal. I know that he amended it so that it's supposed to stack on top of some things, like Social Security. It does stack on top of Social Security now. However, you're correct. If you're in a state like North Carolina, that check, or not. I don't feel like North Carolina would be as big of a deal. But like if I'm like in New York, for example, that $1,000 ain't gonna go very far. But it could significantly hurt me. That's why I said, and also the VAT thing, the VAT tax, which is the value added tax. People, I don't think, understand that that's used generally in Europe, in the Scandinavian countries, even in the islands like the Caribbean. But it's because they don't have the agriculture that we have. They don't have many of the different industries that we have that we can take away from in order to fund policies. And I do believe I get what Yang says about the bureaucracy, and we want to keep it as simple as possible. But at the end of the day, we gotta it don't take long to do math, right? If we can put together this super complex tax system that we still can, put our heads together and get our taxes done every year. When it comes to the UBI, I put in my income. There's a damn supercomputer that calculates how much I'm entitled to, and that's the end of the story. It gets deposited to my bank account every month. I don't think it's a complicated thing. I don't think that millionaires should be getting an extra $12,000 for them to then write off and not pay back in taxes. So it's like we're going to be losing money every year, really, as a nation.
Obi, I'd like to give you a chance to respond and comment to that, and then we're going to move to, I suppose, the last topic. We've been going for about an hour, and then we'll open it up to the second half of the debate. Yeah, so go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just want to say I don't agree with Yang's UBI, especially if it's funded through the vax tax, which is it's regressive. And also, he said that you would have to choose between the UBI and benefits, which might not be worth it to some people.
Nah, he changed it. I do want to be. I don't want to smear him inadvertently. He's changed it. It does stack on top of most benefits. There's a couple of exceptions to that rule, but like before, it didn't stack on Social Security and food stamps, but now it does. So like, I just want to be clear about that.
Also, his VAT tax, yeah, it's a good idea for a UBI, but it does not address any of the structural issues that we have. It doesn't address having a social democratic safety net for everybody. Yang doesn't support student loan forgiveness, medical debt forgiveness. He doesn't support Medicare for all, even though he pretends to. So UBI is not going to fix those structural issues that people have.
All right. So this was a topic that we agreed to early on, and it's something that I think is critical because it will not only transition to a couple of the questions that I have for the second half of the debate, but it's something that is unavoidable, and that's Israel and Palestine. I have a lot to criticize both Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard on when it comes to that, but I'm gonna let both of you make the case for them in terms of, I don't know, who has I would frame it as who has the most pro-Palestinian record, mindset, and statements. So Obi, please,
Sure.
Please kick off.
I would say it's an undisputed fact that Bernie has the most pro-Palestinian record, especially compared to him and Tulsi. Bernie's the only candidate on the field. Bernie's the only candidate on the field that is calling to cut Israeli aid for what's going on in Palestine. Tulsi Gabbard is not. Tulsi Gabbard has always supported the Israelis over the Palestinians. So she's always supported Netanyahu. She went on a far-right Israeli conference in 2015. Bernie did not. So Bernie is more pro-Palestinian, and that I would love to see that being disputed.
Okay.
Is it my turn?
Yeah.
This is from an interview from 2017. The question is, if a two-state solution fails, Kurri asked Sanders, would he support one state with equal rights for both Israelis and Palestinians alike, and equal citizenship? Sanders' answer was, no, I don't. He said, I mean, I think if that happens, then that would be the end of the state of Israel, and I support Israel's right to exist. You know who has never, ever, ever made a statement, not only in a situation between Israel and Palestine, but ever, that one group does not deserve equal rights simply so another group can exist? That would be Tulsi Gabbard. You also know who has never signed on a legislation, signed onto a letter to try and bully the United Nations from participating in BDS in any way, form, or fashion? Tulsi has never signed on to that. Bernie did. And guess what? Marco Rubio wrote that letter. So we already know what it looked like. And Bernie signed on to it. Guess when that was? That wasn't 2014. That wasn't 2013. That wasn't 2012. That was 2017. But time and time again, I'm hearing this lie that somehow Bernie is just infinitely, but don't get me wrong, Tulsi's had her problems on Israel, Palestine, but primarily that was 2014 before Tulsi was introduced to the realities of the situation and began to wake up slowly. At this current moment, Tulsi doesn't take any money from Israel at all. And in fact, they actually hate her. There are actually Israeli lobbies that are dedicated to try and take her down. However, Bernie takes money from J Street. If you don't know, that's basically an American-based version of AIPAC. And he spoke at J Street as well. And he said some pretty good things. He said he'll divert aid from Israel to Gaza, and that's all well and good, but there's a lot more than just Gaza with this Israel and Palestine conflict, and it seems like he just was using buzzwords because everybody can readily identify what Gaza means to the movement. However, like I've said time and time again, as imperfect as both Tulsi and Bernie are, Tulsi has never made the statements recently that Bernie has made. On top of that, let's just look at the facts. Tulsi has been the most outspoken critic of Benjamin Netanyahu, and it isn't just a superficial, oh, let's speak out against Israel so it makes people think that I'm better on the Israel-Palestine conflict like Bernie is tending to do. Has Bernie said anything about Golan Heights? No, he is not. Tulsi did, because Tulsi knew that whole situation with Golan Heights was really about the same thing everything else is about: money, resources, oil, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. She identifies Benjamin Netanyahu as the root, and even was talking about the election with Benjamin Netanyahu and the I can't remember who he's running against, but basically she was talking about how we all need to pay attention because it will affect the outcome of not only Israelis but Palestinians' rights as well. She said very clearly, very, very clearly, not only on my show, but on Jimmy Dore's show, on Kim Iverson's show, and TYT show the same day, when asked, do you believe that the settlement should exist? Absolutely not. Full stop. No. And I asked her personally, well, I know you haven't been the best on this issue in the past, and explain what changed. Not only did she explain how her position changed, but she explained to me where it originated from. She told me I went to visit Auschwitz, and that, which is, how a lot of people get got. It's how I got when I was young, and visit Auschwitz by watching a movie about it. And her empathy for the plight of Jewish people are what made her partial. But she had not been shown the other side of that fence. As she has been shown the other side of that fence,
you got 30
as
seconds.
As with everything else, she's improved vastly, and she's the best in the field as usual. And as she learns more, she will be better than everybody else. But you can't tell me that sitting in a room with Bernie and Tulsi, and you look at everything, comments and all from the last 3 to 4 years down the line, that Bernie is clearly the better than Tulsi on the issue, because that's a lie. That statement alone, you will not give Palestinians the same rights, even in a one-state solution. Even in a one state where everybody's under the same state, you're not going to give them citizenship and equal rights. That is, you know what they would call Tulsi if she said that? Tulsi's Islamophobic. But it's Bernie, so we don't call it that, right? We just ignore it. Okay.
That's time.
Making sure.
All that, yet Bernie's the only candidate on the field that's actually calling to cut the actual funding going to Israel, and Tulsi is not.
Yes,
also,
I don't have a statement for Tulsi cutting aid. I want it real quick. I want to, and if there is one, by all means, shoot
it. Find it for you. It was in her town hall.
I want to point out that there's an article that I've gone to a few times on my show in MemPress. Let me pull that real quick. Written by Niko Peled, whose father was an IDF general in the 1967 massacres, and then who then turned around in 1967 and advocated for a two-state solution. Mm-hmm. The point of the author is, and I think it's a very valid one, and this is something that both Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard do, is advocate for a two-state solution. That this 50-plus year-old idea has moved on past its sell-by date. And that even restricting aid or diverting a little bit of the $3.8 billion that we send Israel a year, even diverting an unnamed sum of that, an unspecified sum of that, is putting the tiniest of Band-Aids on the
structural issue,
gaping, bleeding gashes that have existed because of the amount of money that is already flowed. There's also no mention whatsoever from either of these candidates about restricting influence or intelligence capabilities and domestic spying technology from Israeli tech companies that have direct ties to Unit 8200, which is Israel's NSA, basically. And this
you're not
this
getting any
is
arguments
gonna
from me there.
and this is going to open up a broader conversation about the candidates in general, because we're at that point anyway. Obi, the progressive axiom is Bernie listens to his base and we can move him to the left. Do you see an instance where Bernie Sanders doesn't criticize Benjamin Netanyahu because the Democrats got the green light to criticize Benjamin Netanyahu because they've been supporting Benny Gantz this whole time, and because of Netanyahu's relationship with Trump, but where he actually calls for the end of the legal apartheid state that Israel has become? Up to this point, he has said the Palestinians have been treated unfairly. Like, that's a Bernie Sanders quote. They've been treated unfairly. Does Bernie's base, are they active enough in terms of Palestinian freedom, autonomy, agency, to move him to the left?
Absolutely. And it'd be easier to move Bernie to the left than it would be to get Tulsi elected. Bernie has a wider support of pro-Palestinian groups than Tulsi by far. And Bernie does listen to his base as well.
Niko, I'm gonna ask you the same question, because again, there's only the softest of tiptoeing on Tulsi's part, especially in terms of the two-state solution, which I can't again think of a more outdated solution that is universrsally safe and popular to say, but in reality can't be undone.
I don't like because I agree, like the idea of the two-state solution is kind of out of date, right? And that's why even on BDS's website, which I just looked at last night, it says what BDS's goal is not to advocate for either a one-state solution or a two-state solution, but the adherence to international law and equal human and civil rights for the Palestinian people. And that is the number one goal that I believe we should all have. But this idea that somehow it's easier to move Bernie to the left than it is to get Tulsi elected, that's a weird, I don't know what that's supposed to mean. No, it's not. And I can go into a detail about that later. But I don't know if you know this, but as far as foreign policy is concerned, the last person who tried to move Bernie to the left was his foreign policy advisor. And he had to quit because he called Bernie too hawkish. So I don't know if you know that, but that's the thing. Moving Bernie to the left, the move to amend people, who, if you don't know who Move to Amend movement is, basically they wrote a piece of legislation that would amend the Constitution to completely remove big money from politics and make it clear that corporations do not have the same rights as people. Tulsi actually introduced that in the House with a couple of other people. They actually are pissed at Bernie because he refused to do it. Not recently, but he has never done it. And it's been a thing for a while. They've been going back and forth with each other, and they don't understand why he won't do it. So there's that. So if we're going to talk about Israel and Palestine, why aren't you moving them to because that argument would hold water if you're actually trying to move Bernie to the left. But you're going to sit here in front of this camera, in front of all of YouTube and everybody in the world, and lie and say Bernie is better than Tulsi on Israel and Palestine, when I just told you Bernie just said Palestinians don't deserve equal rights. I just told you that, and it just went right past you. It just went right past you. Bernie, if Tulsi had ever in her life, not just in life, in her life, said that Palestinians do not deserve equal rights merely to protect another group of people, y'all would be losing your goddamn minds. She said the word is radical Islamic extremists, and y'all are still losing your mind about that, and you don't even know what the context was. But you're going to sit here and say that Bernie can say another group of people don't deserve equal rights? It's not even close. And I don't have to move Tulsi left because on my show, on Jimmy Dore show, on TYT, she made it very clear the apartheid state of Israel needs to end. Period. Full stop. No equivocation. Nothing else. Not, well, if Israel's going to be hurt, then and maybe we shouldn't give them as many rights. No, it was apartheid state ends. Full stop. And Tulsi is not perfect by any means on Israel-Palestine. I feel like she needs to educate herself a little bit more. And of course, as always, once again, she'll get better and better on the issues as she educates herself more. But at the end of the day, Tulsi is not, it's bad enough he said it at all. But this was 2 years ago. This isn't even a debate.
Go ahead.
It's not even a debate because that's such a lie that Bernie's not going to get corporate money out of politics and Tulsi will. Tulsi doesn't even have a plan to get corporate money out of politics.
Bro, her bill's already introduced. It was introduced in January.
Actually has a plan.
No. I don't want to hear about the plan. The bill was introduced in January. This is a conjecture, bro. The bill was introduced in January by her and Jayapal. So don't tell me what she won't do. It's already there.
Let's get back
why hasn't Bernie introduced it?
Let's get back to Israel and Palestine for a second. I do want to clarify that. I know I saw your eyeballs move a few times during that, Obi, and I want to give you a chance to respond.
For which one? For what about Israel Palestine?
Well, your position that Bernie has the better stance on is that ignoring the quote that's been mentioned earlier? Does that have anything to play into it? Does
we just gonna pretend like that quote ain't real? Is that what we're doing?
And more to the point, do you necessarily believe that diverting some of the $3.8 billion of aid is going to help in any way, shape, or form the way that the IDF gets to use pregnant Palestinian women as target practice?
Yes, because you're taking away that incentive from Israel. It's not going to fix everything, but that's like a needed first step that only Bernie is committed to and no other candidate has.
Then why the direct opposition to both candidates have a direct opposition to sanctions? Isn't diverting money in a sense a form of sanctions? You're saying
No. Only Tulsi has an opposition to sanctions. As of recently, Bernie went on Kyle Klinsky's show and made it clear that he's not, unless you're talking about specifically with Israel.
Yeah.
But just, with Israel, Tulsi is anti-sanction in general. So after her visit to Syria in 2017, she just decided she's anti-sanction. But Bernie seems to only be anti-sanction when it comes to Israel. Like I just said, he wrote a letter to the United Nations, pretending like he didn't know what the fuck was going on, and then he got caught out about it on Al Jazeera. It was trying to bully the United Nations into not participating in BDS in any way, form, or fashion. Tulsi, however, has made it very clear that you absolutely have the right to participate, although I don't support sanctions. No. She made it, and you don't know what the resolution says then. Because the resolution actually says very clearly, yeah, we don't like it, but you have the right to participate and we can't do anything about it. That's what it said, and I can pull it up if you want me to. I can pull it up. No, she didn't. She voted for it. What are you talking about? That was the whole thing y'all was mad about, remember? That legislation, that's what it said. But I tried to tell y'all that, but your feelings were so hurt because all y'all saw was anti-BDS. And I was like, bro, y'all know there's no legislation right now stopping everybody from being prosecuted who's being prosecuted for BDS right now in the states.
Yes, there is.
With federal judges that were appointed by Trump were sitting ready with their gavels to punish people for BDS right now. And although that legislation was not perfect, that resolution was not perfect, what it did was set a damn precedent to make sure that every federal judge in this country knows I don't care if we don't like it, you can't punish them for this. And that was the most important thing for practical purposes. How I know that this was what it was about was because Iran introduced something similar without the condemnation of BDS by the government, and Tulsi co-sponsored that as well. So don't tell me that it wasn't. You were mad about it because you said she signed it, but now for your arguments could be, oh no, she never signed that. Yes, she did.
No,
Remember we had a whole thing about it.
No. She signed it, but that confirmed that you can't have even the free speech to support BDS.
Oh, it did. Okay, that's okay. I'm gonna bring it up. 246. That's what it's called. Resolution 246.
Well, there's 246 and 426, right?
Of the constitutional right of the United States citizen to free speech, including the right protest of the United States or foreign government. So did you read the legislation before you come over here and try to be a liar and what it doesn't say? Because I'm trying to have a productive conversation so we can move forward, so we can actually have honest discussions about these candidates and move them left and the supporters and push the.
You're breaking up like a motherfucker, Niko.
But if we're just lie about the other person just to have, what's up, man?
No, you're breaking up like crazy. Yeah.
Oh, my bad.
I've got it.
But like I was saying, can you hear me?
You're fading in and out. Maybe I hope it's not. I hope it's not on this end. My end says I'm doing all right. But we're talking about real shit, and this show gets fucked with.
Everybody else is smooth.
Okay.
But the moral of the story is, if we're gonna have an honest conversation about Bernie and Tulsi and where they stand, let's have one in a productive way that isn't lying about the other person just so we can seem like we're the right one. Because that's not what we need to do. I was very clear. Tulsi needs to be moved left on Israel and Palestine. Guess what I do every time I bring up Israel and Palestine, I'm like, Tulsi still needs to move left there. She still needs to move left there. But then you're going to sit here and lie about things that Bernie has said, lie about things that Tulsi has done. And I'm telling you, and you're going to lie about something said in the legislation. You just said it did the opposite. You said it confirmed that we don't have the right to participate in BDS when I just read the legislation. Oh my God. I just read the legislation to you. I just read it to you. Yes, I told you I had my problems with it. And if it was me, actually, I would have told Tulsi not to vote for it at all because it's catch-22. But you told me that legislation confirmed that we are not allowed to participate in it. However, I just read to you that it does the opposite.
What it does is it opposes it, but it doesn't make it illegal.
Yeah. It condemns it, but it asserts the ability to participate in it without being punished.
And it kisses Israel's ass all up and down the bill. All of the whereases are giant ball fondles to Israel, but it doesn't criminalize BDS. That's what I'm taking out of it.
Thank you. If you want to know, it's HRES 246 OB, so you can look it up and make sure I'm not lying. Yeah, go to the bottom where it says number 3. It says it very clearly.
Well, and numbers 1 and 2 are what specifically explain that it's opposed to the concept of it, but it doesn't in fact criminalize it.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is the
still problematic, but
yeah, but that's what separates it from being an actual punishable offense. Is opposition, not enforcement. Or do you have anything for that, Obi, or should we move on to a different gig?
Move on.
We have we didn't really touch on foreign policy too much, but Niko, I would like for you to answer this specifically, because the statements that have always bothered me the most from Tulsi are that she's a hawk on terror and that she supports drone strikes in limited capacity. And if my audience is incredibly familiar with Susie Dawson and her One versus Five Eyes series, my co-host on the Free Assange Vigil, Taylor Hudak is the U.S. spokesperson for One versus Five Eyes. Every single drone strike is predicated on information gathered and delivered by spies.
Yes.
The agenda of the national security state is very rarely the agenda of the American people, or certainly the free and non-hostile, non-engaged citizens of every country. How are you positioned as an even anti-regime change war candidate while willingly stating that you're a hawk on a war against ideology with no specific leader or location, and that you support a program that is predicated on the agenda of global intelligence?
Okay, so as far as the hawk, so she said she's a dove on peace and a hawk on terror, and I do think that it should be said that when it comes to how we perceive words and like what they mean to the progressive movement, because she said this in 2014, Tulsi is not hip to any of that stuff. She did not realize that it was going to be taken that way when she said it. She really did not. Uh, and eventually, I think she caught on to it because it's been used against her over and over again recently. But what she meant was by being a hawk on terror, she meant being vigilant in taking away the mechanisms that have been used to create and cultivate terrorism. This is once again, I don't have to just judge from her words, because I was like, what do you mean by that? I had the same problem. I look at the No More Presidential Wars Act, which dilutes the power of the president and will hold them accountable and will qualify them for impeachment if they commit a military strike without going through Congress. Now, for those who say she's a right-wing fascist, what the fuck? I don't know what the fuck that is. I don't know if people know what fascist means anymore, but that means right-wing authoritarian. That means that if Tulsi got into office, or even now, that she would be concentrating power into the office of the presidency of the United States. However, since 2016, every piece of legislation she's introduced, whether it be the Securing America's Elections Act, No More Presidential Wars Act, Stop Arming Terrorism Act, Stop Financing Terrorism Act, all, by the way, have elements of impeachment included in those legislations. It seems like she's actually more interested in diluting power from the office of the presidency. As far as the drones is concerned, I agree with you. That's actually a huge disagreement that I have with both Tulsi and Bernie in that regard, because I believe with you, the military-industrial complex in the foreign policy establishment rarely do their interests mirror the interests of our people and the people abroad. Now, with that being said, I understand what world we live in, and I understand why she wouldn't take it off the table. She didn't say, she just said that we would keep drones. Doesn't mean that she'll initiate drones. Just like we're going to keep the military. We're not getting rid of that either. But just because she's anti-war doesn't mean you can't prepare for it. You know what I'm saying? So because of the what she has displayed as far as her understanding of how these regime change wars and how the war on terror has come to be, I know that Tulsi will be judicious in not only when it comes to military strikes or lack thereof, but any decision that she makes while she's president. She was in a town hall one day and they asked her, well, how are you going to handle, like, what makes you different than everybody else when it comes to military industrial complex? Because there are a lot of people right now that are saying they're anti-war, anti-regime change, pro-peace, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. She said, I don't need the generals. I know what's going on. I've been in the military. I've actually deployed to these regions. Not only has she deployed to the regions as a soldier, but she's been to the regions as a congresswoman. And she talked to these leaders that other people have refused to talk to. She understands how consent is manufactured. And therefore, when there is an attempt to manufacture consent, she can nip it in the bud and make sure we don't end up there. Even so, in 2014, she made that statement about being a hawk on terror. But even in 2014, or in 2015, she was still clear about what she meant as she introduced a legislation to end a regime change war in Syria in 2015, before everybody else was privy to what was happening in the region. A lot of it had to do with the fact that we were funding terrorism there to overthrow Assad. When she made that comment that everybody likes to call her Islamophobic over about Obama not calling the moderate rebels radical Islamic extremists, she was actually trying to prove a point that she's been talking about recently, at least with the bigger microphone recently, which is that Obama was funding radical Islamic extremists. He was funding terrorists, and she was mad at him not because he wouldn't call them Islamists, but because he kept calling terrorists moderate rebels, which is a problem the entire progressive movement on the left and the independent movement on the right as well have also had issues with, not only with the last president, but with this president as well. But that soundbite got taken out of context and was illegitimately used against Tulsi because of what? Calling out the military-industrial complex, which is the same pattern we've seen when anybody else called out the military-industrial complex. You're a Russia bot. You're Islamophobic. You're this, you're that. It's never actually addressing what Tulsi was discussing, and that was on purpose because she was telling the truth. So I don't have to wonder what she means by being a hawk on terror. She showed it through legislation time and time again that she means dismantling all the institutions that has propped up terrorism at home and abroad.
Steve, your timer is working, right?
You wanna? Wait. This is the second half. We're gonna go kind of freeform. If you want to dominate this conversation, Obi, you go right ahead, man.
Sure. I'll go ahead and rebut it. So let's do an exercise. Let me go over her voting record, and I'll let you guys decide if she's a hawk on terrorism. So RC 395, blocking funding for wasteful Afghan national security forces. It was to block funding to train the Afghan national forces to use helicopters provided by Roboron Export, which is a company that provides arms to Assad. It passed. Her vote was no. RC 391 in 2013 is an amendment to cut $2.6 billion of wasteful funding for Afghan security forces. Much of the money had been wasted, and that security force was not prepared to use it. It failed. Her vote was no. So she voted to fund that. RC 330, June 2016. It prohibits funds from being used in the 2001 authorization for the use of military force with no expiration date, no geographic limits, and vague language. The authorization served as a blank check for war for the executive branch. She voted against that, and it failed. RC 329, June 2016. It prohibits funds from being used for the engagement of her troops in Iraq and Syria until an authorization for the use of military forces enacted to authorize it. She voted no. RC 210, 2016. Barbara Lee's amendment to repeal the authorization of use of military force. She voted no. RC 370, withdrawing troops from Iraq and Syria, 2015. It was directed for the president to withdraw the troops from Iraq and Syria that were deployed after August 7th, 2014. She voted no. Ending the Forever War, RC 237, was won by Adam Schiff to sunset the authorization of military force. She voted yes, which is good. And then another one, and that one failed. Another one came from Barbara Lee, RC 347, which was a sunset of that. It's the same bill as the last one, to sunset funding for the authorization of use of military force. She voted no, and it failed. Also, for Gitmo, RC 236, it was an amendment to prohibit the funding of transferring Guantanamo detainees to Yemen, and it was returning detainees who had not been charged to their home countries. And that would have been an important step to closing Gitmo. It passed, but she voted yes for the roadblocks to closing Gitmo. RC 427, undermining diplomacy with unnecessary sanctions. It's to vote on additional sanctions on Iran after the election of Hassan Rouhani, and passing it right before the inauguration ended up sending the wrong message and harmed diplomatic opportunity with Iran. She voted yes on that. Also, cutting an unneeded $75 million from a new nuclear missile. She voted no to cutting that funding. Reducing the Pentagon slush fund, RC 213, by $9.4 billion. She voted no to that, and it failed. And in 2016, business PACs took up the majority of her PAC money, over 55%. One of the largest contributors was the defense industry. In 2016, again, like I said earlier, she took 63,500 from the defense sector, and the campaign took donations of 10,000 from Boeing and Lockheed Martin. It was only 2017 when she decided to stop taking the money. So you guys can decide. You guys decide.
Is it my turn? Is it my turn? I've been waiting for this.
Yeah, go ahead and spin that.
I appreciate this one. Because I was hoping, I was trying to keep it. See, I was trying to keep it 2014 to present. And I was hoping you would go before that because I got a little list of my own. Because like I said, Bernie nor Tulsi are perfect, right?
Go ahead and fact check this, guys.
No. I'm not questioning whether or not she voted for that stuff.
Nobody's gonna argue that those votes are the way that she voted.
I'm not arguing. I'm not gonna argue against that because I've been very clear that pre-2014 Tulsi, basically a lot of her foreign policy, like everybody else in the legislature, I disagreed with. However, like I said, because we're talking about two people who are currently running for president and whose 70% of their job is going to be commander in chief, I'm glad we get a chance to compare because you're claiming that Bernie is better than Tulsi on foreign policy. So you want to explain to me why he supported the lead up to the second Iraq War, the Iraq Liberation Act, and the resolution calling for the CIA to overthrow Hussein. And he voted for sanctions on Iraq. He voted to bomb Kosovo when literally every human rights organization in the world was against this. And once again, his foreign policy advisor left because he said Bernie was too hawkish. Do you understand that? Bernie was too hawkish. This is the guy that you said is better than Tulsi. Okay, just want to make sure. Does anybody agree with bombing Kosovo? Did anybody with any common sense think that was going to solve any problems? Bernie thought it was. All right. So he also voted for the AUMF, which was used to go to war with Afghanistan. I like how you brought up that she didn't want to end it, but he's the reason that it exists. And he was a senator, by the way. Supported regime change efforts in Syria by the Obama administration and what he called a diplomatic overthrow of Assad. Was one of the very, very, very few co-sponsors of a resolution calling to overthrow Gaddafi, more sanctions, and a potential no-fly zone. No. Because Tulsi's the anti-regime change candidate, and Bernie is being pitched as somebody who's better than Tulsi on foreign policy. Just real quick before I continue, this is a simple yes or no answer. Has Tulsi ever voted for a resolution or any regime change that led to slavery in another country? Because once again, this is 70% of the job if we're talking about being a president of the United States. Huh?
As Bernie.
I just told you that Bernie co-sponsored legislation to overthrow Gaddafi in the Clinton State Department administration, and it led to slavery in Libya. If he would be president, he would want to still overthrow, I don't know, maybe Assad. And then you can say, well, he didn't know any better. He believed the intelligence community. Well, it seems to be a lot of that going around with Bernie, doesn't it? And if he's going to believe the intelligence community enough to overthrow a leader and then that mistake turns into open market slavery, I think that's something we should probably be considering before giving him all this power to command the troops. Let's continue. He was asked about lifting sanctions in Iran and Venezuela and Cuba by Kyle Kalinske. And instead of just saying no, because they were illegal, when Kyle asked that question, it was about illegal sanctions that have been proven to be and found to be illegal. He said, I have to study it. Okay. Continues to support sanctioning Russia and punishing them for interference in the election that they didn't interfere in. He supported the lead up to, excuse me. He basically supported every military effort by the democratic institutions. But all of a sudden, when the Republican gets in office, now he's super anti-regime change. He's the best on foreign policy. And this has been a consistent practice for Bernie. Now, the whole argument that y'all make is, we can trust Bernie because of 40 years of consistency. But clearly, he is not as consistent as y'all portray him to be. And a lot of this stuff I've already known, but I've never held it against Bernie personally. I bring it up. I try to move him left wherever I can, even in 2016. However, this idea that Tulsi is a fake anti-regime change war candidate and Bernie is actually a peace candidate, you're going to have to reconcile that one with me because I don't get it. Because, yeah, they both got mistakes, but Tulsi's mistakes never led to open market slavery. So please clarify that for me.
All right, let's clarify it. So that statement that Bernie supported the resolution that led to open market slavery.
Co-sponsored.
It's co-sponsored. That is misleading. So that's mostly true. Sanders did vote on a resolution that called on Gaddafi to resign, but it's a non-binding resolution, first of all. And
no, they didn't call it. It said overthrow. It said overthrow. It said overthrow Gaddafi. It didn't say this. Not the you talking about another resolution. I'm talking about the resolution where it said to overthrow Gaddafi that Clinton eventually used to do that. And non-binding, it's a resolution encouraging. What does that have to do with it?
The Green New Deal is a non-binding resolution. Non-binding resolutions are Washington speak that allows cabinet officials, State Department officials, the permission to move forward with what they're doing without legislation having to be passed where individual
and if I may say, Steve, because I want to make sure, I want to address the inconsistency. Because you said a resolution is not a big deal now, but when Tulsi's when that resolution 246 got passed,
everybody's talking at once.
Overthrow Gaddafi, and this is what I'm talking about. He's doing all this taken out of context to make Bernie look bad and Tulsi look good. When
out of context,
he said that he co-sponsored the resolution as non-binding, first of all, and it calls for Gaddafi to resign in a peaceful democratic position of power. Does not call to overthrow Gaddafi.
That's okay. I'm gonna pull it back up for you. I got you.
All right, pull it up.
Yeah, do you throw that in the?
Sanders go ahead, continue. He wants Gaddafi out.
Throw that in the group message, Niko,
please. Sustained U.S. military.
I got you.
So it's a fact.
The way that Libya went down, the way that Muammar Gaddafi and in particular was used as a warning to any other African leader who would dare will a Pan-African currency into existence, a way to move away from the U.S. dollar, be less dependent on U.S. Influence and client states in the region. It strikes me personally as something that you could similarly compare to what is happening with Julian Assange. If Bernie listens to his base and his base can move him left, I've been asking this question for almost 2 years now. Can Bernie's base please get anyone in his campaign to say Julian Assange's name out loud?
I agree. He needs to be more vocal about Assange for sure. He has been doing better, and he came with a new plan to protect whistleblowers. But Assange's not a whistleblower, but it's still a good first step. But I do agree that he needs to call out Assange.
I want to make this a call to all of the Bernie people that are in the chat right now, to you, Obi. Write a statement. Tag not just Bernie Sanders or Nina Turner or Warren Gunnels, but David fucking Sirota, Bree Gray, every journalist, every independent actor, individual on that campaign to make a vocal supportive statement to end the extradition of Julian Assange, because that man doesn't have time. And this is, I have plenty of issues with Tulsi Gabbard. You're not going to find me voting for a major party candidate. I live in Santa Cruz County, California. My vote for president doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't. My county is going to go 84% blue, guaranteed. So I'm allowed to vote for whomever I fucking feel like, which is always Cynthia McKinney, by the way, for president. The one thing I can't back Tulsi into a corner and wag my finger at her for is her support of Julian Assange. Bernie Sanders did come out, and he's thus far is the only candidate who has made a promise to stop prosecuting whistleblowers under the 1917 Espionage Act. And as Obi pointed out for us, that Julian Assange himself is not a whistleblower. He's a publisher and a journalist.
Which is even crazier.
He spoke, when he spoke about this, he spoke exclusively about the Ukrainian whistleblower. Now, that's a name that we're not allowed to say here on YouTube or will be severely punished. And you're not allowed to say it on Twitter either. I contend that if you work for the CIA and the thing that you're blowing the whistle on is not the CIA, then you are not a whistleblower. You are a guy who is following orders. Do you think it's possible? And I'm asking this seriously, and I know that you're not a Bernie Sanders surrogate, but you're here to represent that team and that campaign in terms of this debate. Do you think it's possible that it's more likely that Bernie Sanders would have nice things to say about Julian Assange posthumously than at any point during this campaign, given the ration of rationalities as to why he won't say Julian Assange's name?
So you're asking if he would mention him posthumously?
Yeah,
so,
like that would be the first, after his death, would be the first time that he recognizes the contributions of Julian Assange.
I'd say possibly, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't, I mean, it's speculation, but I mean, I'd say possibly.
Can I answer? Is he running? It depends. Is Bernie going to be running for president? Are we guessing, is this after he gets elected or before?
Well, the simple fact of the matter is that even Craig Murray, who was immensely skeptical about the report that Nils Melzer came out with, saying that Julian Assange had been psychologically tortured, Craig Murray was reticent to believe that, and in fact expressed extreme skepticism. And when it came to his recent court appearance on October 21st, Craig Murray immediately came out and was like, holy shit, I was wrong. Like, this guy is getting tortured to death. My point is we don't have time. Julian Assange doesn't have time to wait for the conditions to be right for people to speak out on his behalf. So
Can I say something regarding like the the point of this discussion in general that we're having is basically who is going to fight for the people when it is the hardest, right? Who's going to use their mandate and their voice to get things done, and where they can't get it done because of legal restrictions, the people will fight and organize to get it done behind the leader that they chose to get things like this taken care of. I loved it. I love to hear this thing that, why would Bernie speak on Assange? Because this isn't going to do anything. It isn't going to do it. I have a question. What did we just celebrate? 2 days ago? Didn't Lula just get out of jail? Right? Lula just got out of jail. You think that has anything to do with the fact that there was an international solidarity, and a lot of the Americans are now educated on Lula specifically because of Bernie Sanders speaking on it. Now, and Lula isn't even as internationally as popular and as well known as Julian Assange. Imagine the day that Julian Assange got dragged out of that embassy, what Bernie's voice speaking on this issue would have done for that dialogue and that discourse. The man says anything on Twitter and in his news for the entire next day. And all of a sudden, we don't have to debate. You know, they're going to ask Bernie, "Oh, why would you speak out?" Why? And guess what? Now Bernie is getting the chance to tell the truth about Julian Assange and making it not about whether or not we like what he did or whether or not we don't like what he did. It's he's a publisher first and foremost. What he published true? Yes. Is he being held illegally? Yes. The United Nations already said this multiple times. And so now we're forced with this question where, once again, Bernie supporters are picking and choosing. When Bernie speaks out, we give him, look at him, he's speaking up for all the little people. But Julian Assange is about to die. Chelsea Manning is being held right now for $1,000 a day. Illegally. Oh, no, excuse me. Apparently Obama made it legal to do this type of thing, to hold somebody without being charged. But basically, if it got taken to the Supreme Court, it would be definitely proven illegal. But hey, how the hell is Chelsea Manning going to do that when she's being held in solitary confinement and no one is speaking up for her? I don't have to wonder we all know that Julian Assange, Chelsea Manning, and Edward Snowden have one thing in common. They showed the ugly, ugly face of the American empire in their own unique ways. Whether it be Edward Snowden with the surveillance state, whether it be Chelsea Manning with the military-industrial complex, whether it be Assange with exposing our rigged election system and how we really don't have as much choice as we originally thought we did. Each of them have exposed America in very unique ways and exposed the root causes of a lot of the problems that we deal with. But guess what? Tulsi's the only one who has spoken up for each of them. And not only that, once again, but guess what? When she found out what Snowden, this isn't widely discussed. When she found out what the Snowden revelation, she talked about this on Joe Rogan. She and others introduced legislation to address it. How successful has it been? That's a whole different discussion. However, I know that she'll do something about it. When she found out about the election rigging that we obviously learned about through the Assange revelations and WikiLeaks, guess what? Securing America's Elections Act with blockchain technology, not just paper ballots that can be taken out and destroyed after they've been hand counted, but blockchain where you can't undo what's been done without getting caught. If you're willing to speak up for those who are clearly in the right for what they have done, when no one else will, I don't have to worry about if you're going to speak up for me. I don't have to worry about if she's going to speak up for Obi. I don't have to worry about if she's going to speak up for Steve or anybody out in this crowd. I don't have to worry about if she's going to speak up for Bernie because she's already done it. If you've spoken up for rigging not once, but introduced legislation to address it, you've spoken up for whistleblowers, and then you got a plan to address that too. Once again, if we're going to argue whether or not Bernie's a great person, then you're going to get no argument out of me. Bernie is an amazing human being. He's an amazing legislator. He's an amazing senator, and he would still be a great president. But we're in like Steve said, Julian Assange can't wait. Chelsea Manning can't wait. Climate change can't wait. The military-industrial complex listen, y'all, I'm an empath. These wars, every day I wake up in the morning hurt. Because it is these, I feel like I wake up every morning and I don't have to worry about my house being bombed. And that's not the case for the rest of the world. I don't want to have to worry about if my president is going to believe the next lie the intelligence community sells them. And we only get that guarantee if Tulsi Gabbard is the commander-in-chief. Period, point blank. Bernie can be the organizer-in-chief as a vice president and still get all of his agenda passed because anything he gets across Tulsi's desk, Tulsi's signing. Nobody is going to argue that Tulsi would not sign Bernie's domestic agenda. Anybody arguing against that's a lie. They're a liar. They're saying that if he got federal jobs guarantee through Congress and he put in his blood, sweat, and tears to get that through, Tulsi's signing that. Just like she would sign UBI. And she's proved this. But I can't say the other way for Bernie because just last week, Tulsi introduced the bill to end the war in Syria. And guess where Bernie is at? Nobody knows. A lot of you all don't even know about it because Bernie hadn't said anything about it, but Tulsi's the fake anti-regime change war candidate. Whenever 9/11 victims were calling all presidential candidates to merely hold the right people accountable, they were very clear. Everybody ignored them except for who? Tulsi Gabbard. So why are we, once again, what's the discussion we're having? Who's great? Who's good? Because both of them are great. Both of them. You're not going to get any argument. But who's the best to be commander-in-chief right now in America as it exists in the reality that we live in today? And that's Tulsi Gabbard, hands down, full stop.
So I want to give Obi a chance
Sure.
to come back here. But real quick, let me know. I want to let you guys know where I'm at. I got about 15 minutes.
Okay.
And I do want to, if we can, if we have time for that, discuss the the fact that we don't currently have a free, fair, or secure election system. So go ahead, Obi, please.
Okay, so like to say that Tulsi is for a regime change, anti-regime change on surface only. So Tulsi, she has that mentality, oh, I want to end regime change wars. I want to end wasteful spending. I want to bring American troops back home, which is good, but does not take into account the need to have worker solidarity of people around the world. Bernie Sanders has that only, Tulsi does not. Bernie, like Niko said earlier, Bernie was the only one that spoke about Lula. Tulsi Gabbard was nowhere to be found on Lula. Bernie is the only one that says with this Green New Deal and this immigration reform that he'd work with Latin American countries to help improve those countries so we don't even have the problem of people moving across to the US. Tulsi she went on Breitbart to reaffirm that no borders equals no nations on Breitbart, a far right.
Bernie feels the same way. So don't play that game.
Bernie does not feel
Bernie feels the same way. He clarified.
Hey, Niko, let him go.
Let's not lie about it. Let's not lie. There's no need to lie.
Moderator. No, that's a lie. Bernie's for decriminalization of the border. Tulsi,
that's not the same thing as open borders.
Tulsi, yeah, tell that to Tulsi. Tell that to Tulsi.
What?
Tulsi said that's essentially open borders. That's a lie.
No. What Bernie she said is she's not for decriminalization. Right, she's for comprehensive reform.
Bernie, moderator.
I'm looking for the specific quote right now. I'm looking to pull up the clip of that. But
can I explain? Because I actually have a legal background. Can I explain what decriminalization means?
Let him talk for a minute, Niko. He's
Go ahead.
Definitely earned the right to speak.
Go ahead.
All right, so Bernie's for decriminalizing the border. That would take it from a criminalization to a civil offense. Tulsi says she doesn't want kids separated, but right now Trump imposes zero tolerance on it being a criminal offense, so that's why families are separated. Tulsi is against it being decriminalized, so that means that when immigrants cross, they can still be detained, just not separated anymore. Bernie's for decriminalizing the border. He's for going after the real source of the immigration problem, which the companies that employ these people under low wages, he's going to go after them. He's going to make sure they have minimum wage jobs. He's going to reform immigration to make it more efficient and easy. Tulsi goes on Breitbart to reaffirm that we need to secure our borders. And that is such a fundamental misunderstanding of foreign policy. You need somebody that will stand with the working class around the world in solidarity, that will stand with democratic socialist countries around the world, democratic socialist economies, that will advocate for diplomacy for foreign policy and advocate for working with other countries on climate change and advocate for a more open US.
Okay, so this is why you don't go to Michael Brooks to get your information. See, I actually have a legal background. That's actually what I did in the military. Decriminalizing borders is not what you think it is. Because once again, this is what I told, and this is, but here's the thing: you think it is, and people have been pitching it as if it is, which is why when Tulsi said on David Rubin that the Democrats have been advocating seemingly for something like that, although of course they would never ever pass open borders because they don't want it. They don't want any type of comprehensive.
Yeah, nobody's for open borders.
Hold on, you're making different arguments now because that doesn't make any sense of what you said.
Nobody's for open borders.
Hold on, let me finish though. Decriminalizing the border simply makes it a civil offense. That's
exactly
all it does. Oh, let me finish. It makes it a civil offense. Have you ever gotten a civil offense? Because you know you can still be put in jail for a civil offense. You know you can still be separated from your families with a civil offense. I know it. Once again, the rhetoric sounds really good. No. The rhetoric sounds really, really good. I know. Decriminalize. Oh my God. That's comprehensive. No. It just makes it civil. It's like taking a felony to a misdemeanor. But guess what? Your ass can still end up in jail for breaking the law. So even as the border is decriminalized, you can still have families separated. But guess what? And let me be very clear about this, because I was there. And if you're going to try to call me out on this, I would love to see it.
Yeah,
see, Tulsi actually went to Homestead. She went to the Homestead Detention Center because the immigration issue was actually something that is very, very, it's very serious for her, because just how much she cares about the kids specifically that are being affected. She went to go once again observe the root of the problem. And of course, she doesn't support, she's not against decriminalizing it, but what she said was, I would rather instead introduce comprehensive immigration reform, and also, which Bernie cannot say he would be okay with, I want to address the root cause, which is once again the military-industrial complex, which the same military-industrial complex and the intelligence community that props up that military-industrial complex that will tell Bernie, oh, Lula's great, but Maduro is a nothing but a socialist communist dictator, and Chavez is nothing but a socialist communist dictator, and that's not my words, that's Bernie Sanders. So you're gonna sit here, oh, he spoke up for Lula, but then you're gonna lie about Maduro. So you're inconsistent. So basically your conviction is based off of whatever the popular opinion of the neo-progressive left is, because that's what we need in the presidency right now when it comes to foreign policy, is another person who is just going to be a follower instead of a leader and leading from the front. Because I want to address immigration just as bad as you do, just as bad as Tulsi, and just as bad as Bernie. But if Bernie's not going to address the military-industrial complex substantively in Central and South America, because you can't tell me he's going to, because he's already, once again, resolution to, he didn't introduce resolution, I lied. He said very recently, we need to transition Maduro out peacefully. But that's regime change war. I don't know what else to tell you. So as far as Tulsi's, because he said she's not for global or international labor solidarity, her whole thing, she in a New Hampshire town hall, she addressed this, along with her being called an isolationist. She said, no, it's funny that when I say I don't want regime change war, that must mean I'm an isolationist. And that's how fucking sick and twisted this country and DC politics have become, that when you don't want to get involved in someone else's affair, that it must mean you're an isolationist. It must mean you're anti-solidarity. In fact, she said it's quite the opposite. She said we cannot go around waving a big stick, but instead we need to work with nations. We need to work alongside nations. We need to work through peaceful methods in a way that uplifts each other, rather than throwing sanctions around every time we don't like a dictator, overthrowing somebody every time we don't like a leader. She was very clear about this, and she's actually addressed this over and over and over again. You just seem to ignore the answer, because all you're basing your statements on is what Bernie has said. But you're going to use Lula for every Lula Bernie has spoke on, which is what? One, I can tell you every situation he's gotten completely and totally wrong. Assange, Manning, Maduro, Chavez. Do you want me to keep going? Do I need to keep going? So if we're going to, once again, are we going to be real about what the situation is and just say, you know what? I agree. Bernie should probably move a little bit more left in that regard. I think he probably should speak up, at least at the bare minimum. Maduro, it's not that hard, bro. It's not that hard. If you're going to speak up for Lula, speak up for Maduro. Because Maduro is literally going through the exact same circumstances. It's just that his people were infinitely more loyal, so they never even got an opportunity to overthrow him in the most secure election system in the world, which Bernie Sanders still refuses to acknowledge.
Well, so, in Maduro's situation, he's not imprisoned specifically, but his country is under extreme U.S. sanctions and a naval blockade.
Yeah.
So I got about 10 minutes, and I would really like Obi to be able to participate in
Go ahead.
this.
So I'd like to say that the root cause of immigration is partly the military-industrial complex, and also the corporations that are hiring them, which Bernie's tackling. Tulsi is not. Again, Tulsi's not for decriminalization of the border. Bernie is. That's true. Tulsi said that those plans that Democrats have is essentially open borders, which is false. There is no Democrat candidate that supports open borders. I don't know why he was reframing it.
She said that she was that what they were essentially doing is advocating for it, even if in spirit. But not that they were going to pass it, because just like they advocate for Medicare for all in spirit, they're not going to do that either. She was saying that they were pandering, basically, and that's exactly what they were doing.
That's not pandering. Decriminalizing the border is not pandering. Decriminalizing makes it a civil offense.
Bro, you think it makes it? You just thought it made it so that you don't end up in jail. You just thought it. You can't end up in jail if you didn't decriminalize the border.
Are you gonna lie about that?
If I go to jail
when you decriminalize
because I have a civil offense and my kid is, I'm gonna bring my kid to jail with me. I'm gonna bring my kid to jail with me. I'm gonna bring my kid to jail with me. Is what you're saying? I'm gonna bring my child to jail
again. Watch how he's deflecting from how Tulsi.
No. You just said nobody's gonna be separated. Right, if I go to jail over a civil offense and I have a child,
so look.
Tulsi went on Breitbart, not Fox News. Breitbart.
So okay, first off,
with this dichotomy,
no nations to stoke and to not change people's minds, but to reaffirm that we need a secure border. While Bernie is actually for decriminalizing the border, Tulsi is not, and she calls that.
That doesn't make any sense.
That is a huge gap. That is a gigantic crack.
Your point is disjointed
for foreign policy, and it shows
your
not have a
leftist
worldview at all. She has a nationalist, isolationist worldview.
That makes no sense
about
either.
Regime change war and American money spent and American lives spent. She does not talk about regime change.
That's also not true either.
The lives of people around the world in a working global solidarity. Bernie does. He's not perfect. That's why we need to move him to the left. That does not mean just because he's not perfect does not mean he's to the right of Tulsi. Tulsi's objectively to the right of Bernie on foreign policy. Tulsi has a 51.
Objectively?
Tulsi has a 50.
Oh, who's she? Hold on. Did she vote to overthrow a dictator that led to slavery? Which of Tulsi led to slavery? Which of Tulsi votes led to slavery?
I'm gonna jump in here for a minute. The basis for most people's argument that Bernie has a better foreign policy standpoint in terms of peace comes from Code Pink, and that's as far as I know, that's where most people are basing that off of. Cory Booker put forth legislation to decriminalize the border. It is a civil offense. You can be incarcerated for that. You can be separated from your family for that. A decriminalized border is essentially open with conditions. Open borders are a fucking poison pill for a vast majority of voters. It has always seemed like when it's brought up to Tulsi, instead of specifically countering it, she will nod in agreement with the host and then make her case for what she envisions border security looking like. It's not a right-wing dog whistle as far as I'm concerned, but it does leave a lot of people with the assumption that she is siding with her more right-wing host. And that's a matter of perception, and there would have to be legislation one way or another to determine the difference. But
there's legislation that should vote against refugees coming to the U.S., even though
that's not true either. That's a lie. That's actually not true. You're talking about the legislation that
24 months from Syria, they undergo 18 to 24 month process. She still voted against that because she didn't feel like secure enough. Yet she made it.
Oh, that's not what she said. That's not what she said. That's not what she said. What? See, here we go again. You're gonna make up a lie. That's okay. I got you. That's what I read legislation and I watch interviews. I got you. Listen. Hold on. No. I'm gonna correct you. Because I'm gonna correct you.
They're separate. It's because Trump put a zero tolerance policy on the criminalization of the border.
Wrong.
That's a fact.
Well, wrong. Let me explain to you what. Can I explain to? Because I remember because I was actually working with Syrian refugees at the time, and I watched Tulsi's interviews and I read the legislation. First of all, it was not just about Syria. That's one thing that you're leaving out, and it's important. It was also about Iraq as well. And what was happening at that time, which I actually talked about during this debate. Oh, that's right. We found out that we were literally funding terrorists. And if you know anything about the refugee, quote unquote, process in the United States, we don't bring in the people who need it. We bring in the opposition. We bring in the people who support the what's that motherfucker's name from Brazil or from Venezuela that was trying to overthrow Assad.
Juan Guaido.
We bring in the fans of Guaido. We bring in the fans of Bautista whenever Bautista is overthrown by Fidel Castro. We don't bring in the brown and black people. We bring in the opposite. That's why our refugee process was created, and that's how we turned away Jewish people during the Holocaust. Our refugee problem is that we don't actually help refugees. Tulsi, actually understanding foreign policy and what was going on, knew, because we've done this in the past with the Taliban, that was simply a green light to bring in potential terrorist threats and house them instead of keeping them over there. And no, let me finish, because that's what reality is. However, but still understanding that there is a refugee crisis, guess what she also did just a couple of months later? Pushed for more funding, federal funding for the refugees, specifically in Syria. So if you're going to tell the story, then tell the whole story. But that's the problem. It seems like one of us has a cold pink understanding of what the world looks like as far as policy is concerned, and others have done research. And you're not open to listen to or do the research yourself, but yet you're going to assert that everyone who corrects you is a liar, everyone who corrects you is a shill. Tulsi's actually objectively not better on foreign policy. Bro, I don't understand. Overthrow Gaddafi led to slavery. Voted to overthrow Assad. Voted to overthrow Assad. Voted to bomb Kosovo. Voted to bomb Kosovo. Like, I can go, like I said, I can go all day with this.
Good job. You're doing a great job, dude. You talk a lot, too.
Oh, I know. I'm good at this shit, huh? I know. So if we're going to be objective, then let's be objective. But don't sit here and say the man who believes everything the intelligence community says, you're basing that off of cold pink. Oh, so let me guess. So next you're gonna quote Greenpeace, right? The same Greenpeace that said Tulsi was the eighth best candidate. No. Let me finish.
About peace action now.
You're talking about Greenpeace that said that Tulsi was the 8th best candidate on climate change, and they gave her a 35 out of 50 for getting off of fossil fuels, while forgetting that she's the one who introduced the All Fossil Fuels Act. That's what. So these are the people. These are the people.
I've got years of problems with Greenpeace as they currently stand. I've got about 5 or 10 minutes left. What I would like to close with is the lack of movement on free and fair elections. And I understand that Tulsi Gabbard introduced the Securing Americans Election Act. We have proof through WikiLeaks that the moderate Democrats wrote her a letter basically telling her that any support that she would have received, she gave up when she resigned from vice chair of the DNC in 2016. And this is to both of you, because obviously, you want to see a President Gabbard, a President Sanders. I think that most of the people in the chat would like to see one of those two candidates in the White House. Knowing what we do, knowing why Tulsi stepped down, understanding what was revealed through the DNC emails, the Podesta emails, Vault 7, and WikiLeaks, and then the ensuing DNC fraud lawsuit, where Bruce Spiva said in open court, there's no such thing as a Democrat. The DNC is under no obligation to follow its own bylaws. We can pick candidates in a smoke-filled back room. Knowing that a contract was just secured through the watered-down version of the Securing America's Federal Election Act. The contract was secured by Amazon. to provide the software for the voting machines.
Question: which one did Bernie support? I'm just out of curiosity, Steve. Which one did Bernie support? The one with blockchain or the one where Amazon has got a contract? It's out of curiosity.
If you go to the website that tracks votes, it was the second version of the bill, the Securing America's Federal Elections Act.
The ones that pimp us out, right? Okay, just want to make sure.
Realistically, is there a snowball's chance in hell for a free and fair election to take place in 2020? And what happens when we don't have free and fair elections? Niko, keep it to 5 minutes, please, and I'm going to restart the timer for this because I am on short time now.
No, I got you. To make a long story short, we will not have free and fair elections this election season, and it's an unfortunate fact, but it is a fact nonetheless. And that's largely because of a lot of what we talked about during this debate. Unfortunately, the progressive movement seems to only want to move where Bernie moves. It seems to only want to advocate for and fight for what Bernie advocates for and fight for. And Bernie doesn't advocate for actual election integrity. He just advocates for whatever the Democrats consider to be election integrity. When Bernie introduced this Securing America's Elections Act the first time in 2017, unfortunately, Bernie was quiet about it. Tulsi then introduced it again very recently. While she was prepping for a debate here in Miami and participating in the debate here in Miami, they gathered the phony legislation behind her back, introduced it, they voted on it, pushed it, then introduced it in the Senate, and Bernie co-sponsored and pushed that version, the version created by Amy fucking Klobuchar. And once again, many people would have to figure out, well, why would he push that one and not Tulsi's? Oh, that's right, because the Democrats approve of Amy's bill and not Tulsi's bill. Because Tulsi's bill, once again, just like the Off Act, will get the goal achieved in the correct way. And so we have to ask, so is Bernie advocating for the progressive movement or advocating for what the Democrats will approve of on our most structural issues that we all agree are problems like election integrity? Because at the end of the day, we can sit here and have this debate all we want to. But as it currently stands, I know you like, oh, the movement, all the numbers, that's all well and good. I was there. The numbers don't fucking matter. I'm going to tell you why. Because right now, Tulsi and Bernie have an even chance of winning unless we deal with election integrity.
Bernie by far.
Unless we deal with election integrity, and Bernie has an even chance of winning. Obi, you were not on the ground, bro. You weren't on the ground. I was at the convention when we won twice. We won twice. We had the numbers, all the crowds and all that cute shit you like to bring up now. We had that in 2016, Obi, with no competition other than fucking Hillary Clinton. And guess what happened? At the convention, it was stolen from him. It was stolen from him there. And if we would have had election integrity then, we would have never even had to compete at the convention. It would have been over before it even began. Because he was that successful. He had that type of movement. He was doing that type of fundraising. He was collecting those type of crowds. So unless we want to talk about the real, and like I said, we can keep going back and forth about who has a better chance. But like Steve just said, as it currently stands, because nobody wants to talk about election integrity unless Bernie talks about it, and Bernie won't talk about it. Tulsi and Bernie have an even chance of winning. And that chance is nil unless we actually address election integrity.
And addressing election integrity entails what? Getting Tulsi elected?
I think
what? That's nice.
If you were to ask me what addressing election integrity looks like,
so your solution is to push Tulsi.
No, the solution was to push the Securing America's Elections Act, which does hand-counted paper
ballots. That she
ballots.
wouldn't pass unless she got through this corrupt election. Did you ever think about that?
That makes no sense, Obi.
The legislation.
Why did
the legislation?
Her legislation passed unless she can't, as president, she won't have the power to get that passed unless she got through this primary. And if that primary is rigged, she's not going to get through it.
So look,
you're right. You got it.
Yo, so the legislation was introduced in 2017. The original. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. It's 2017.
Yes, you're correct.
Was the year that the original Securing America's Elections Act came out. It speaks volumes to Congress's overall unwillingness to support free and fair elections, knowing that died on the vine like it did. I would put any candidate's odds at even with each other who aren't being specifically propped up by the DNC
establishment. Yeah.
In fact, from the way that I see it, coming out of the Unity Conference right after Donald Trump got elected, when Tom Perez walked out and said, we've made a lot of compromises and we've made a lot of changes that are going to allow this process to be more transparent and more open. And in fact, we handled that super delegate problem. They can't vote on the first round anymore, and we've limited the number of them by a whole 20%. The only way that we could possibly screw over a candidate is if, say, the field was completely saturated with 20 or so different candidates. I do think that without election integrity being a focal point of any candidate's campaign, that their resolve to do anything about it should be questioned.
I'd like to add something.
Absolutely.
All right, so Tulsi is going for the paper ballots, and that's good. Bernie is going for the structural issue of money in politics, and way more than Tulsi.
Okay, I just told you. Hold on. Okay, Obi, I need to keep up. No. Obi.
Hey, hold up. Let him finish his points, Niko.
His audience deserves better, because he always does this thing about, we need to be supporting Bernie, Yang, and Tulsi, because Yang is going to give his delegates to Tulsi or Bernie. Let me read how it works. Scenario 1, a candidate earns a majority of pledged delegates only. Outcome is that their pledged delegates vote on the first ballot for that person that won a majority. Scenario 2, the candidate earns a majority of the convention and pledged delegates. And in that scenario 2, pledged and superdelegates can both vote. Now, that scenario where no candidate earns a majority, that takes it to superdelegates. There is no scenario where Yang would give his delegates to Bernie. That whole
first scenario, such a
weak foundation.
First scenario,
they trust that Yang will give his delegates to Bernie. Why would you put your whole entire election strategy on the notion that Tulsi will give her delegates to Bernie or Yang will give the delegates to Bernie? When first of all, that's not even going to happen.
That's not the entire strategy.
And Tulsi's not even going to get 15%.
Based off of what?
Delegates.
Based off of what, Obi?
Actually, is 3%. 3%.
That's Obi. Okay, no. So we're gonna double all this back.
They said that 5% was a lie.
Steve, can I jump, because he done told about 3 lies back to back, and we're not about to let that slide.
He's lying to you.
We're not about to let that slide.
We need to put our entire election strategy on some lie that he made up.
And you know what? Hold up. Matter of fact, I'm glad I just.
Tulsi would give delegates to
I'm glad you just brought this up.
If you support Tulsi, that's fine. I have no problem with you. If you support Yang, that's fine. I have no problem with you. But if you support Bernie, you have to donate. You have to contribute. You have to get behind Bernie if you support his issues. That lie, they need to be supporting more than one candidate. Lie.
So I'm gonna address all that. First of all, you just gonna tell both-faced lies. So hold on, no. Don't talk about irresponsible. No, because we're gonna talk about irresponsible.
Oh yeah.
So you just lied. No. You just straight up lied. No, you just Obi. No, you just straight up. I let you finish lying. I let you finish lying. No,
I'm gonna mute both of you.
How does Tulsi?
I just let him fit. Did I not just let him finish lying?
Christ! People sexual predators and racists.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Let's dial all of this back.
Steve, can I just let him finish lying, and he won't let me finish?
He's telling people, saying that people are sexual predators. That
what the fuck are you talking about?
I'm unsure where that's coming from.
Pedophile.
Let's be very clear about something. Let's be clear about something. You're not gonna sit here and you're not gonna sit here. You're not. Listen. You can yell all you want to, but you're not gonna.
Election strategy.
Steve, can you
I'm about to mute both of you. So let's.
Cause I let him finish.
Let's stop for a second. I have no idea.
Obi's lying. Obi's lying about Bernie.
I have no idea whatsoever how we got from election integrity to sexual predators. I don't know how that happened.
Because the argument's about to fall on his face, and he knows it, and that's why he's cutting me off.
Yo,
that's why. But can I address it, please? Can I address the candidate,
real quick? We got 5 total minutes. Niko, you're on the clock. You've got 2 minutes to address this.
Thank you. I appreciate this.
We gotta go.
No, Obi, let's talk. Because you just sat here and told a whole lie saying Bernie has a plan to get big money out of politics, but Tulsi does not. Oh, no. Let me fucking finish. Because I let you lie. I just let you lie completely without being cut off.
When Bernie does,
David, can you mute him, please?
I'm
mute him, please.
Yo,
because he keeps cutting me off.
2 minutes, no interruptions.
Like I was, and he's still talking. He's still talking. So I just told the world, which apparently you weren't listening to. Oh, well, Bernie has a plan and Tulsi doesn't. That's a bold-faced lie, like all the other lies you've been telling this damn debate. Let me finish talking. Let me finish talking. Because you're not going to sit here and lie and keep cutting me out because you know what I'm about to do to your ass. January,
what are you going to do?
Tulsi introduced legislation alongside Jayapal to get big money out of politics, and Bernie had the chance to do it and chose not to. The move to amend organization has constantly had to ask Bernie to do it, and he gives him the middle fucking finger every single time. So let's be real about it. We're going to be real about it. Don't sit here and tell me what Bernie has done and what Tulsi has done and what, because then you're going to sit here and lie every time. If you know the facts, then talk about the facts as they are. Just like the highest she's polling nationally is 3%. You fucking moron. She just got 5%. One of her qualifying polls nationally, she qualified 5%. That was one of her qualifying polls for the debate. That's just one. And if you want to keep it real, every poll okay, so Steve, is he gonna keep on talking? Can we mute him, please, so I can finish? I'll let him finish lying.
I let
him finish lying, and he keeps cutting me off.
You got about 30 seconds to finish this point, and I got to get out of here. So
like I was saying, one of her qualifying polls was 5%, but hell, fuck that. Let's talk about Wisconsin, where she's 6%. Let's talk about New Hampshire, where she got multiple 5% and 6% polls. Let's talk about the fact that every poll that Tulsi rises in, Bernie sinks in. So if you want to talk about 15%, and speaking of which, you're lying about the delegates, because guess what? Because once again, I was at the convention. I know it's surprising that people do on the ground work. I was at the convention. Even at the convention, last time, Martin O'Malley gave Hillary Clinton his delegates at the last convention. It's only if you get to the second round, not the second scenario, second round, that the superdelegates begin to get counted. So let's once again talk about the facts as they are, not how you want them to fucking be.
I'll send it to them.
Delegate horse trading is so common that it's even on the fucking Wikipedia for how conventions are ran. Like, this is a process that has happened for over 100 years.
Read the scenario.
It's absolutely nothing
Read the
new.
Scenario. I'll send the link.
And please do, and I will look at it. I've been to multiple conventions. I volunteered for my first, or
basing your election strategy on the predication.
Nobody's basing their election strategy completely off of that. Nobody is doing that. What I'm telling your dumbass to not do is not alienate the voters and the delegates you're going to fucking need.
The front runners. How about you actually support
what? That makes no sense.
Our revolution, ESA, that actually supports a Green New Deal and a
You're not making any sense.
So lying that Tulsi.
What are you talking about? Like, you're not even making. So now, listen. Listen,
You
I
have
get
an
it.
audience of
You're a really
40,000
emotional. You're a real emotional guy. I get it. I get it. But listen, you will bring more people over to your side by not lying.
Tulsi got 5 here.
I'm telling you, you'll bring more people over to your side by not lying.
To Bernie, basing your whole election strategy on that, calling people saying
whose whole strategy is based. Where are you getting this shit from?
Are you serious?
Where are you getting this shit from? Whose whole election strategy is based off of that? I would love to know where you saw that at. Whose whole election strategy is
lying right now?
My election strategy is based off of what?
I'm going to jump in now to close it out. All right, I have heard Niko talk about this. In fact, he talked about it on the show yesterday. I don't think that it's a fair characterization to say that his entire election strategy is based off of delegate swapping on the first round.
Nowhere to be found. With no evidence either. And he's gonna sit here and say, I'm lying, while he's undercutting Bernie at the same time.
Man, we made it
working their ass
almost
off for
2 hours without this.
And one of them is not you.
Fucking
so let's be clear about that.
But definitely not you,
both
man.
of you guys.
Definitely not you.
Appreciate you, Steve.
Folks.
You hold up, pause. You said definitely not me. No, don't talk about my bro, hold up. Nah, Steve, please hold up 1 second. Until you go homeless working for fucking Bernie, you don't get to talk about what work gets done. You don't, no. Your ass creating a fucking Twitter account is not working for Bernie, okay? Lying about Tulsi is not working for Bernie. Kissing Michael's ass, that is not working for Bernie, bro. That is not working for Bernie. What you're doing doesn't help Bernie. Because people are going to figure out the facts because they actually have somebody good to watch, thank God. But then you're going to sit here and lie. It doesn't work like that, bro.
40,000 people, they deserve better.
You are not, nobody's going to your channel, bro. Nobody's going to go to your channel. You're not going to get any more famous off of this. You just need to stop lying.
This is where I jump back in. Because I was trying to close this out. I was so fucking proud of all of us for not fucking screaming dumbass and shit the entire time. Glad that we all waited until the end. I gotta go. I've got a kid I have to pick up. I want to thank the both of you for coming on and doing this. I do feel like we're all going to have these conversations moving into the Democratic National Convention, which I personally know will be fucking an uphill battle for anyone trying to carry a progressive banner. I do have to split. I want to thank everyone who tuned in today. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. You can find Niko on Rockfin and on YouTube. He is the founder of the Mikasa Sukasa Network. You can find Obi here on YouTube at is Yellow Vest or Yellow Vest America?
Yellow Vest America.
Yellow Vest America. You can find Obi on Twitter under the same name, and it's at America Vest, America_Vest. Yep. Folks, Jesus, that was fireworky. I love each and every one of you. This has been Slow News Day. My name is Steve Poikinen.
Hey, everybody, don't forget to subscribe to Steve, y'all, because a lot of my supporters are here. Don't forget to press that subscribe button. He's done a lot of great work, and I appreciate you hosting the debate. So if you're here and you're from my channel, make sure you subscribe. He does some amazing work.
Good luck to us all.
Good luck. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you.